Hi there, this is Krista Moore, and welcome to the Women for Nikki interview series. I have the pleasure of interviewing some of our leadership team throughout the United States to get their insights on why they're involved in the campaign, but also why Nikki Haley. And I like talking to industry experts and thought leaders that could really show us and demonstrate to us the importance of having Nikki Haley on the ticket for president in 2024. I wanted to introduce you to my guest today, which is Christina DelleCamera. Hi, Christina.
Hi, Krista. It's nice to be here today.
Great. You are, with the Women for Nikki organization as a co-chair in New York. Also, though, you come to us with a great deal of expertise in the residential lending industry. You are part of a large company, family-owned business called iServe, and you bring that area of expertise. So my line of questioning for you today, Christina, is really about the housing market and the economy and what you're seeing, and what do you think Nikki Haley can do to help improve that area for many of the middle-class Americans. So first off, I just would like to maybe give a little background on yourself and tell us why you're involved in this campaign.
Yeah, so I appreciate being here today. I have a finance background. I came up in the hedge fund world. I started out my career, I was the youngest female to trade on the New York Mercantile Commodities Exchange. I was a gold futures and options trader. And in doing, being in the hedge fund world and being in that business, I've made a lot of relationships. And I was able to meet some of the people that are working on the Nikki campaign now. And they got me involved with some of the other campaigns, Giuliani, Romney, raising money and being involved with politics. And I've been following Nikki since she's been coming up and everybody's been supporting her. And I just love what she's done. She's been a great proponent in the state of South Carolina. She did a great job at the UN when she was there. So I've been, following her for quite some time, and I'm really excited to be part of the campaign with her.
Awesome. Why don't you share with us, what are some of the things that you see in your company as you're dealing with middle class that are looking to get loans for homes? What are some of the hardships that they're facing?
So one of the biggest problems that people are facing right now is affordability. And, Nikki touched on a lot of this. I mean, her daughter is going out, they're buying a home, and they're experiencing it as well. We're seeing a lot of things across the country. We have offices in 12 different states throughout the US with a big presence in the Southeast and on the West Coast in California and Nevada. And what we're seeing is a lot of people right now can't afford the down payment. Rates are high. Home prices have surged over the last few years, upwards of 20% in areas. So it's pricing people out of the market, and it's almost making things unattainable. The dream of owning a home. And, we're seeing more and more people, younger couples, specifically Gen Z and the millennial group, come to the table at closing with parents to help with co-signing, with down payment assistance from friends and family. Some people are even, younger, maybe unmarried couples are going in with a bunch of friends, pulling their money together, buying a home, and going at it that way because prices have just gone up so much with rates going up as well.
Yeah, and you really touched upon it. I mean, purchasing your first home is just all part of the American dream, right? And when we hear these statistics that the average age of a home buyer today is 49, that kind of blows my mind. What do you know about that, or what have you learned about that statistic?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about this. 2 years ago, the average age of the home buyer was 47 years old. So in 2 years, it's gone up 2 years. And a lot has happened in the last 2 years with rates and the housing market. So, people are living at home longer. And a function of the age is also wage growth. And people are not getting paid what they used to be getting paid. Like an area, say, for example, in New York, I think they said the average income that you need is $134,000 just to be able to consider buying a home. In a lot of markets, most people don't make that kind of money. So they're not able to buy a home because of that. And that's why having, assistance programs and other options available is good for them. But we're seeing that across the board in every market.
Right. And let's talk about that for a moment, because if I understand the statistic, correctly, 60 to 70% of Gen Zers cannot afford to buy a home. So there's the rental market, is a whole other animal to tackle, right, in terms of the inflation that's happening there. But when you think about these new families, young families that are having to rent and raise their children, the cost of childcare, the inflation in groceries, all of those components adding up is eating away at any savings that they might have in order to go towards a home loan. And I really question just what's happening in that world today. And what do you believe, having Nikki Haley as president in 2024, what do you think her attention will be on, and why do you think that she's the best candidate for us?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it, 50 to 70% of the Gen Zs and millennials can't afford to buy a home. And it's a function of exactly what you mentioned. You have, the biggest thing is we have a supply chain issue. And that's created a whole nother subset of buyers, which is your Airbnb people that are not, living in those homes. They're not releasing those homes back into the market, which they need to. So you have a supply issue, an inventory issue. You have the Fed that pumped all this money into the system, which caused treasury rates to go up, which caused mortgage rates to go up. Insurance costs, homeowners insurance is very high right now. We're seeing the highest numbers we've seen in a long time. Building costs are high. So for builders to build, it's still very expensive, lumber and, the building materials and things like that. So there aren't a lot of things happening right now other than, the Fed is starting to make moves to hopefully bring rates down soon. But it's still pricing a lot of people out of the market. We're seeing here in New York, a lot of people just going down south. Why? Because it's cheaper, better cost of living. You get a lot more for your money. And, here in New York, you have a huge influx of people coming in from all over. So it's very diverse. But those people leaving and coming into the South is driving up the cost of the market down south. So where it is more affordable in those areas, you're starting to see a spike up in home prices and things like that as well. So this is a big issue that, it's not going to happen overnight, but Nikki is the only candidate that's really focused on it and talked about it in the debate. And she hit on the three main issues: affordability, the average age of the homeowner, and the Federal Reserve and regulations. And I think she's the only one that understands that, yes, we need to open up the supply chain, but she knows what we need to do that and to stop the government, the federal spending and adding to the debt. And we need to curb all of that stuff so that we can open things up and get the economy back working again.
Right. And, the other thing, which is really more kind of pulls at her heart, I believe, is her experience being a mom that has a daughter, recently married, struggling to be able to afford a new home. She has a son that's in college that has kind of been thinking about, well, what's he going to do? Where's he going to live when he gets out? How's he going to be able to afford? So it's really a different scenario when you're a president or in that seat, and you can relate to what's happening with your children and realize that you can potentially, have influence or impact on a lot of the middle class or a lot of other kids or generations to come, and really feel connected to that, which I don't see that with other prior administrations.
Yeah, Nikki definitely brings something unique to the table in that sense, because it's real life for her. Her children are experiencing this. And I will say, having worked on, volunteering on the campaign and making calls and talking to actual people that are, in some of these states that we've been focusing on, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Iowa, and hearing their concerns. Who can't afford to buy groceries, and where are they going to, are they going to get paid next month? And all of these factors are playing into it. And then, coupled with the global macro issues that we see happening throughout the world, this isn't just happening here, the housing problem in the United States, it's happening everywhere. So, Nikki really understands it because her child is going through it as we speak. So, who better than to be a proponent of this than someone that's actually going through it right now?
Right. And we can overlay that with her parents live with her.
Yeah.
That's a real situation. And she can certainly relate and understand that that's happening with a lot of families and households throughout the United States, where as a retired person or the elderly, they can't afford, to get into a high-priced nursing home or facility. So people need to bring them in. Families need to take care of their family.
I mean, you have most 30 to 35-year-olds now. I mean, you're seeing the average age of marriage and having kids going up. Most 30 to 35-year-olds, I want to say the number is somewhere around 34% are still living at home because they can't afford it. I mean, they can't afford rents either. I mean, here in our area, I mean, granted, New York is a very expensive area, but even in Connecticut and some of the smaller towns, the average studio, 500 square feet, is going for $2,000, $3,000 a month. Who can afford those prices? Because your earnings, your wages are not really what people are getting paid are not back to where they used to be pre-COVID. So people aren't making the money that they used to be making.
Right. And I want to just add that what we've seen in the Trump administration and gets spoken about frequently, that is how much deficit he's built. And I kind of look at it as at a time, the worst time, he was making money and putting it back into the economy. And we're experiencing the effects of that today. So many people that are saying, well, Trump was in power whenever we had a good economy and I like his policies on all of that. What would you say to those people?
Well, I mean, it's very clear. He added $9 trillion to our debt, which we're still paying for now. And that's something that just continues to keep piling up. So, does he win again and come in and open up the checkbook and start spending and drive our debt up even more? Highly possible. That can happen with anybody. And that's kind of scary to think about. But what people don't realize is he added $9 trillion to our debt. That's a big number, and that's going to affect every sector in our market.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment, too, because there's a clear difference between Trump and Nikki when it comes to, let's just say, accounting. And when you look at it, I see it as he was burning through the money because it made him look like he was the savior, right? That he was improving people's daily living, but not thinking about the future generations and the impact that this $9 trillion was going to have. Think about Nikki's approach in terms of getting, she's an accountant in the White House. We've never seen an accountant in the White House, but look how she's managing her campaign. Exactly. And that's a good indication of how she's going to be managing the country.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, her campaign right now is not running with any debt, and she's spending her money wisely, and she knows the markets that she needs to be spending money in. That's the ideal person. I mean, it should only be that simple, but the way she's running her campaign is how we would hope that someone would run the country, is that not spending foolishly and knowing where to spend the money.
Yes. And as a woman for Nikki, coalition member and leader in New York, what would you say to other women across the United States in terms of what they should be looking at in Nikki Haley getting to the primaries and voting for her to get her on the ticket?
I mean, we'll talk about the biggest thing is that Nikki's a woman, and it's something that our country hasn't experienced before. And obviously what we've done for the last 100+ years some of it has worked, some of it hasn't. And our country's ready for a change. And we need someone that is going to fight for the best interests of the people and have policies and legislation that they're going to enact that's going to advance this country forward. And everything that she talks about on her platform, from abortion to education to the economy and the Federal Reserve and regulations, are things that are going to advance this country forward. And as a woman, I mean, it would be great to have a woman's touch in this country, because what's happening now, there's so much chaos, there's so much upheaval, there's so much uncertainty with what's going on in the Ukraine and Israel and China and Taiwan, that we need someone with a level head, and Nikki is that person, and she's going to be the best proponent for the American people.
Right, and bringing that normalcy back into the White House. in
And
our country.
who's a better proponent than someone who has children in the market? They're dealing with things firsthand, and she's living these real life examples that she talks about. So you want someone like that as a proponent for your beliefs and your values.
So for all of our Women for Nikki members, and also those ladies that are watching that are curious about the Women for Nikki movement, we hope you join us in our crusade across the country to get Nikki elected and for the presidency in 2024. So please support us. Go to joinwomenfornikki.com and get involved right away. Go Nikki.
Go Nikki.